The morning sun cast long shadows across the Seoul Advanced Physics Institute as Dr. Dae-ho Kim stared at his computer screen. The numbers made no sense. He had been working on faster-than-light travel for 15 years, and every equation told him the same thing. It was impossible. But these new calculations showed something different. Something that made his hands shake. "Hae-jin, come look at this," he called to his colleague across the lab. Engineer Hae-jin Park rolled her chair over, coffee mug in hand. She was the best systems engineer in the building, maybe on the entire planet. If anyone could make sense of his wild theories, it was her. "What am I looking at?" she asked, squinting at the screen full of complex math. "The quantum field equations. Look at line 47. Dae-ho pointed with a trembling finger. "If we create a resonance cascade in the quantum foam at this exact frequency, we don't just bend space-time. We tear it." Hae-jin finished, her voice barely a whisper. The coffee mug slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. They stared at each other in silence. The implications were staggering. Every other species that had achieved faster-than-light travel did it by bending space around their ships. Humans, it seemed, had figured out how to rip holes in reality itself. Admiral Sang-woo Lee arrived at the lab 3 hours later. The tall, stern man listened as Dae-ho and Hae-jin explained their discovery. His face grew paler with each word. "You're telling me," the Admiral said slowly, "that our FTL drive doesn't just move ships faster than light. It tears holes in the universe." "That's exactly what we're telling you," Hae-jin replied. "And we have no idea what happens to the things that fall through those holes." The Admiral was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "We need to test this, but not anywhere near Earth." 2 months later, they stood in the command center of the research station New Horizon, floating in empty space far from any inhabited worlds. Through the observation windows, they could see their test ship Taeguk, a small craft no bigger than a fighter jet, equipped with the experimental FTL drive. "All systems ready," reported the technician at the control panel. "Target is the uninhabited moon Kepler 442c. Distance, 50,000 kilometers." Dae-ho felt sick to his stomach. They were about to test technology that could change everything, or destroy everything. "Initialize the drive," Admiral Lee ordered. The Taeguk disappeared. Not in a flash of light or a burst of energy. It simply ceased to exist, as if someone had erased it from reality. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the moon began to change. It started as a small dark spot on the surface, like someone had painted a black dot on gray rock. But the spot grew, and grew. Within minutes, it covered half the moon's surface. "What is that?" whispered Hae-jin. "I don't know," Dae-ho replied, but his voice carried a terrible certainty. "I think it's nothing." The dark area wasn't shadows or destruction. It was the complete absence of everything. Matter, energy, even light seemed to fall into it and vanish forever. The moon was being eaten by nothingness itself. In less than an hour, the entire moon was gone. Where Kepler 442c had existed for billions of years, there was now only empty space. Not even debris remained. The command center fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Everyone stared at the empty void where a celestial body had been just minutes before. "The Taeguk," Admiral Lee asked quietly. "Where is it?" The sensor operator checked his instruments twice before answering. It's at the target coordinates, sir. Exactly where it should be. But the moon is gone," Dae-ho finished. He felt like he might throw up. The drive worked perfectly. It transported our ship 50,000 kilometers in an instant, but the process created a tear in space-time that consumed everything around the arrival point. Hae-jin was already running calculations on her tablet. Her face went white as she read the results. The tear should have sealed itself after a few seconds. The fact that it kept growing means... She stopped speaking. "Means what?" Admiral Lee demanded. "It means the damage is permanent. We didn't just tear a hole in space. We broke something fundamental about reality itself in that area. The universe is trying to heal the wound, but it can't." so the tear keeps spreading, consuming everything it touches. Admiral Lee sat down heavily in the nearest chair. How long before it stops growing? Daeho and Hyojin exchanged glances. Neither wanted to answer. We don't think it will stop, Daeho said finally. At least not naturally. The equations suggest it could keep growing until it consumes the entire solar system. Maybe more. The Admiral aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Can we stop it? We're working on that, Hyojin replied. But it will take time. Maybe months, maybe years. We don't have years, the Admiral said grimly. Word of this test will spread. Other nations will want to know what happened here. And when they find out we've created technology that can erase moons. He didn't need to finish the sentence, they all understood. Humanity had just discovered the most powerful weapon in history by accident, and the weapon was so dangerous that using it might destroy the universe itself. Over the following weeks, teams of Earth's best scientists worked around the clock to find a way to seal the growing void. They tried everything. Controlled explosions, exotic matter, even experimental time manipulation. Nothing worked. The tear in space continued to grow, consuming asteroid after asteroid as it drifted through the Kepler 442 system. Finally, Dr. So-Young Han, a brilliant young physicist, proposed a radical solution. What if we use the FTL drive itself to seal the tear? That's insane, Daeho protested. We'd risk making it worse. Or we might create a controlled collapse that seals the wound, So-Young countered. It's our only option. They modified the Taeguk's drive system, programming it to create multiple small tears around the large one. The theory was that the smaller tears would destabilize the larger one, causing it to collapse in on itself. It worked. After 3 tense hours, the growing void suddenly contracted and disappeared. Space-time snapped back to normal like a rubber band, leaving only empty space where the moon had been. But the victory felt hollow. They had created technology that could erase planets with a thought, and if they could figure it out, other species probably could too. Admiral Lee gathered the entire research team in the main conference room. His expression was grim. Everything we've discovered here is now classified at the highest level, he announced. This technology is too dangerous to share with anyone, but we can't uninvent it either. He looked around the room at the tired faces of Earth's brightest minds. We're going to continue research, but with extreme caution. If this technology exists, we need to understand it completely, because someday someone else might discover it too. And when that happens, we need to be ready. Daeho stared out the window at the stars, wondering if they had just doomed humanity, or saved it. 3 months had passed since the moon incident. Earth's governments had finally agreed to send a proper exploration mission to the outer systems. The ship Harmony was humanity's pride, sleek, fast, and equipped with the latest technology. Everything, except the reality-tearing FTL drive, which remained locked away in the deepest vaults of the Seoul Institute. Ambassador Ji-Woo Choi stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewport. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Humanity's first official diplomatic mission to deep space. They weren't looking for aliens, but everyone secretly hoped they might find some. "Ma'am," called Captain Min-ho Yoon from his command chair. "Long-range sensors are picking up something unusual. Large object approximately 1,000 kilometers ahead." Ji-Woo moved to the sensor station. The object was definitely artificial, too geometric to be natural, and it was moving toward them at incredible speed. "First contact protocol," she ordered, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. "All stop. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies." The communication officer nodded and began transmitting humanity's carefully prepared first contact message in mathematics and basic physics. They waited. The response came faster than anyone expected. The alien ship, for it was clearly a ship, slowed to a stop just 10 kilometers away. It was beautiful, like a crystal sculpture that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. "They're responding," the communications officer reported excitedly. "The signal is complex, but our computers are finding patterns. I think I think they're trying to establish a language protocol. Within 2 hours, basic communication was established. The aliens called themselves the Veltari, and their ship carried Ambassador Kithara on a mission of peaceful exploration. They seemed as excited about first contact as the humans were. Captain Minho suggested a formal meeting aboard the Harmony. The Veltari agreed, and arrangements were made for Ambassador Kithara to come aboard with a small diplomatic party. Jiwoo spent the next few hours preparing. First contact with an alien species was the most important event in human history. Everything had to be perfect. The Veltari delegation materialized in the Harmony's main shuttle bay in a column of soft blue light, transportation technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Kithara was tall and elegant, with crystalline skin that shifted color as she moved. Her 3 companions were similar, but smaller. "Welcome aboard the Harmony," Jiwoo said, stepping forward with carefully practiced diplomatic courtesy. "I am Ambassador Jiwoo Choi, representing the human species and the planet Earth. The honor is ours," Kithara replied through the translation device they had developed. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Kithara, speaker for the Veltari Collective. We bring greetings from the inner worlds." The formal ceremony went perfectly. Both species exchanged information about their cultures, their histories, their hopes for peaceful relations. Jiwoo began to think this might be the beginning of a golden age for humanity. Then everything went wrong. It started when Kithara's companions began moving their hands over small crystal devices, apparently some kind of advanced sensors. At first, they seemed curious about human technology. Then one of them made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret, a sound of pure terror. "What is it?" Jiwoo asked, concerned by their obvious distress. Kithara's crystalline features shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, alarming red. "Your ships," she said, her musical voice now harsh with fear. "You're faster than light drive. Show us how it works." "I'm afraid that's classified technology," Captain Minho replied carefully. "But I can tell you that our current ship uses conventional ion propulsion. We don't have FTL capability on this mission." "Lies," whispered one of Kithara's companions. "The quantum resonance signature is unmistakable. They carry the mark of the Devourers." "Devourers?" Jiwoo asked, confused. "I don't understand." Kithara stepped backward, her color shifting to deep purple, apparently a sign of extreme agitation among her people. "You have discovered reality-severing technology, the same quantum signature that appears in our oldest, most terrible records. I assure you we are a peaceful species," Jiwoo said, raising her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of non-aggression. "We have no intention of harming anyone." "Peaceful," Kithara repeated, but her tone suggested she didn't believe it. "The last species that claimed to be peaceful while carrying that quantum signature consumed 14 star systems before they were stopped." Captain Minho and Jiwoo exchanged glances. Neither understood what the aliens were talking about, but they were clearly terrified of something they thought humans possessed. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding," Jiwoo suggested. "If you could explain what you're detecting, maybe we can clear this up." But Kithara was already moving toward her companions, speaking rapidly in their own language. The translator caught fragments. "Reality tears, quantum cascade, consumption signature. We must leave," Kithara announced suddenly. "Our people must be warned. The Devourers have returned." "Wait," Jiwoo called, but it was too late. The Veltari delegation disappeared in another column of blue light, leaving the human diplomat standing alone in the shuttle bay. "What just happened?" Captain Minho asked. Before Jiwoo could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The communications officer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain to the bridge immediately. The alien vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies." They rushed to the bridge to find chaos. The Veltari ship was indeed broadcasting, but not to the humans. Their signals were being transmitted across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, using technology that human science couldn't even detect. "What are they saying?" Jiwoo demanded. The communications officer looked pale. Our computers are still working on the translation, but the key phrases keep repeating. Devourers identified. Reality-severing technology confirmed. Species, designation, human. And something that translates roughly as execute protocol extinction. Captain Minho sat down heavily in his command chair. They think we're some kind of ancient enemy. But we've never seen them before in our lives, Jiwoo protested. How can we be their ancient enemy? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kyung-Soo Lim, the mission's xenobiologist, had been quietly running analysis on the Veltari sensor readings during their visit. His face was ashen as he approached the command station. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I think I know what they detected. The quantum signatures they mentioned, they matched the theoretical predictions for the Seoul Institute's FTL drive." Jiwoo felt ice form in her stomach. "That's impossible. We didn't bring that technology on this mission." "No," Dr. Lim agreed. "But our ship was built in the same orbital shipyards where they tested it. The quantum resonance might have contaminated our hull plating. Even trace amounts would be detectable to sensors advanced enough." On the main screen, they watched the Veltari ship accelerate away at impossible speeds, its crystalline hull flashing, with internal light as it prepared for faster-than-light travel. "Captain," the sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting multiple FTL signatures approaching from different vectors. Whatever message they sent, it's being answered." Within hours, ships began appearing throughout the outer system, not just Veltari vessels, but dozens of different designs representing species humanity had never seen before. All of them maintaining careful distance from the Harmony, but clearly surrounding it. "They're not attacking," Captain Minho observed. "No," Jiwoo replied grimly. "They're making sure we don't escape. They think we're the return of something called the Devourers, and they're preparing for war." The communications officer looked up from his station. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast to the entire galaxy. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was not Kithara's, but something older and more authoritative. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. To all civilized worlds, the species known as human has been confirmed to possess reality-severing technology of the type used by the ancient Devourers. They represent an existential threat to all life in the galaxy. By unanimous vote of the Emergency Council, humanity is hereby designated for immediate extinction. All available fleets are ordered to converge on the Sol system. No human ship or settlement is to be spared. The survival of the galaxy depends on our swift action. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "How many ships are out there now?" Captain Minho asked quietly. 47 and counting," the sensor operator replied. "More arriving every hour." Jiwoo stared at the tactical display showing the growing alien fleet. Humanity had made first contact with the galaxy, and within 6 hours had been marked for total extinction. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "Maximum speed. We have to warn them." "Ma'am," Captain Minho said gently, "they'll follow us home." "I know," Jiwoo replied, "but Earth needs to know what's coming, and maybe, just maybe, our scientists can figure out why the galaxy is so afraid of us." The Harmony turned toward home, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, the alien fleet continued to grow, preparing for what they believed would be a war for the survival of all life in the universe. News of humanity's existence spread across the galaxy faster than wildfire. On 1,000 different worlds, species that had been enemies for centuries suddenly found themselves united by a single terrifying threat: the return of the Devourers. On the crystal homeworld of the Veltari, Kithara stood before the High Council, her normally serene features twisted with fear and urgency. The great chamber, carved from a single massive geode, rang with the harmonious voices of her people as they debated humanity's fate. "The quantum signatures are unmistakable," she reported for the third time. "Reality-severing technology, identical to the ancient records. They call themselves humans, and they possess the power to unmake existence itself." Elder Morthek, his crystalline form clouded with age, spoke from the highest platform. How many worlds have they consumed? Unknown, Kithara replied. They claim to be peaceful, but that is what the last devourers said before they began their feast. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, masters of plasma warfare, recalled every battle fleet from the frontier. Their war commander Thexel, a 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior covered in ceremonial scars, addressed the Imperial Senate with unprecedented urgency. The ancient enemy has returned, he declared, his voice echoing through the vast amphitheater. Our oldest databanks speak of the reality eaters, the species that consumed the predecessor civilization 14 million years ago. They have taken the form of a young race called humans. Senator Vexara, representing the outer colonies, raised an objection. War Commander, how can we be certain? Perhaps this is simply a similar technology developed independently. Thexel's eyes flashed with dangerous light. The quantum resonance pattern is unique. It is a signature written into the very fabric of space-time itself. There is no mistaking it. In the wandering fleets of the nomad territories, Fleet Mother Velnara received the emergency broadcasts aboard her flagship Drifting Star. The nomads had no fixed homeworld, having learned long ago that planets were too easy to destroy. Their entire civilization existed aboard vast city ships that traveled between the stars. Gather the clan leaders, she ordered her second-in-command. If the Devourers have truly returned, we must decide whether to flee to the dark between galaxies or stand and fight. Within hours, representatives from 200 nomad clans had assembled in the Drifting Star's Great Hall. The debate was fierce but brief. They had run from the Devourers once before, abandoning their original homeworld to the cosmic void. They would not run again. But perhaps the most terrifying response came from the deepest reaches of space, where ancient automated systems that had slumbered for millions of years suddenly sparked to life. The Sentinel network had been built by a long-dead civilization specifically to watch for the return of the reality eaters. Massive space stations, each the size of a small moon, began powering up their weapon systems. Artificial intelligences older than most species awakened from their long sleep with a single purpose: destroy the Devourers before they could begin their feast again. On Earth, the situation was approaching panic. Ambassador Ji Woo Choi had returned with news that changed everything. The emergency session of the United Earth Council had been going on for 18 straight hours, with no sign of ending. Dr. So Young-hun sat at the scientists' table, exhausted from hours of testimony. She had been trying to explain to the world's leaders why an entire galaxy wanted to kill them all. Let me understand this correctly, said President Martinez, representing the Americas coalition. These aliens think we're the return of some ancient species that ate reality? That's a simplification, but essentially correct, So Young replied. Based on the communication logs from the Harmony, they've encountered this quantum signature before. Something they call the Devourers possessed reality-severing technology identical to our FTL drive. General Taimin Jiang, Earth's top military strategist, leaned forward from his seat. How many ships are we talking about? Current intelligence suggests over 3,000 vessels from 47 different species, reported Admiral Sang-Woo Lee. And more are joining the fleet every day. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had a total of perhaps 50 combat-capable spacecraft, most designed for patrol duties within the solar system. What about our secret weapon? Asked Chancellor Petrov of the European Federation. The reality-tearing drive? Dr. Dae-ho Kim, looking haggard from months of sleepless work, spoke up from the scientists section. It's not a weapon. It's barely controllable technology that we've tested exactly once, and that test consumed an entire moon. But it worked, Chancellor Petrov insisted. Could we use it against their fleet? Not without risking the complete destruction of our solar system, Dae-ho replied firmly. The quantum tiers we create don't distinguish between enemy ships and friendly planets. Everything gets consumed equally. Meanwhile, communications specialist Yoon Seo Kim was working frantically to establish dialogue with the approaching alien forces. Her team had managed to decode several of the galaxy's major communication protocols, But every attempt at contact received the same response. Silence. "They're not interested in talking," she reported during a brief break in the council session. "Every species we've tried to contact either ignores us completely or sends back automated messages demanding our immediate surrender." "Surrender to what?" asked Prime Minister Singh of the Asian Alliance. "Extinction," Yunseo replied quietly. "They don't want to conquer us or enslave us. They want to completely erase humanity from existence." As Earth's leaders struggled with the impossible situation, the alien fleet continued to grow. The Veltari brought their crystal ships, beautiful but deadly, equipped with technology that could crystallize entire planets. The Zephyrian Empire contributed massive dreadnoughts bristling with plasma cannons that could melt mountains. The nomad fleets offered their city ships, each one a fortress carrying millions of warriors. But perhaps most concerning were the ships that no living species recognized, ancient vessels of unknown design emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The Sentinel network was awakening, bringing with it weapons that had been built specifically to fight reality eaters. 3 weeks after first contact, the combined alien fleet reached the outer edge of the solar system. They established a perimeter around the entire star system, ensuring that no human ship could escape. Then they began to wait. "What are they waiting for?" President Martinez asked during yet another emergency session. General Tai Min had been studying the alien fleet dispositions for days. "They're being careful," he concluded. "They've positioned their forces to create overlapping fields of fire, but they're maintaining safe distances from each other and from us. They're treating us like we might detonate our entire solar system. If cornered, can we?" asked Chancellor Petrov hopefully. "Theoretically," Dr. Deho admitted reluctantly. "If we activated multiple FTL drives simultaneously throughout the system, the quantum resonance cascade could potentially create a reality tear large enough to consume everything within several light years." The room fell silent again as everyone contemplated the horror of that option. "But," Deho continued, "it would also likely create permanent damage to space-time itself. The tear might never stop growing. We could end up destroying not just the solar system but potentially the entire local galactic region." Dr. So Young looked up from her analysis of the alien communications. "They know that," she said quietly. "That's why they're waiting. They're giving us time to surrender peacefully rather than forcing a desperate last stand that could damage the galaxy itself." "How generous of them," President Martinez said sarcastically. "Actually," So Young replied, "it is generous. From their perspective, we're literally the most dangerous thing in the universe. The fact that they're not simply bombarding us from maximum range shows remarkable restraint." Admiral Sang-Woo Lee stood and walked to the great window overlooking Geneva. In the distance, he could see the lights of spacecraft launching and landing. At the spaceport, humanity's desperate attempts to evacuate essential personnel to hidden bases throughout the outer system. "How long do we have?" he asked. Communications specialist Yoon Seo checked her latest intelligence reports. "Based on their fleet movements, I estimate they'll begin their attack in 72 hours. They seem to be waiting for some kind of superweapon to arrive." "What kind of superweapon?" "Unknown, but sensors show something massive approaching from the galactic core. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything else in their fleet." As if summoned by her words, every communication system on Earth suddenly activated simultaneously. The same message, translated into every human language, began broadcasting from every speaker, every screen, every device capable of producing sound or images. "People of Earth," the voice began, ancient and implacable. "You are the inheritors of forbidden knowledge. Your species has discovered the power to unmake reality itself, the same power that once threatened all life in the galaxy. We do not act from hatred, but from necessity. You will be given 72 hours to prepare yourselves. After that time, humanity will be removed from the universe for the safety of all existence. We suggest you use this time to make peace with whatever." While Earth's leaders counted down the hours to their extinction, archaeologist Dr. Woo Jin Na was making a discovery that would change everything. His team had been excavating ruins on Kepler 186f, a dead world that showed signs of having once supported a massive civilization. The ruins were older than anything humanity had ever encountered, millions of years old, possibly tens of millions. But it was what they found in the deepest chambers that made Wu Jin's blood run cold. "Professor," called his assistant, Kyung-Soo Lim, from across the excavation site. "You need to see this." Wu Jin climbed down into the newly opened chamber, his headlamp cutting through the ancient darkness. The walls were covered in carvings, not decorative art, but what appeared to be technical diagrams and mathematical equations. "It's some kind of technical manual," Kyung-Soo explained, running his scanner over the alien symbols. "The computer is having trouble with the translation, but these symbols keep appearing." He pointed to a complex pattern carved deep into the stone. Wu Jin stared at the symbol. It looked familiar, but he couldn't place where he had seen it before. Then it hit him like a physical blow. "Send this image to Earth immediately," he ordered, his voice shaking. "Priority transmission to Dr. Dae-ho Kim at the Seoul Institute." Earth Dae-ho was in his laboratory, frantically working on modifications to the FTL drive system when Wu Jin's message arrived. The moment he saw the carved symbol, he dropped his tablet. It was identical to the quantum resonance pattern produced by their reality-tearing drive. Within hours, every available xenoarchaeologist and linguist was working on the Kepler 186f ruins. As the translation slowly emerged, a horrifying picture began to form. The civilization that had built these ruins, they called themselves the Architects, had been the galaxy's dominant species 65 million years ago. They were master builders, creators of wonders, shepherds of younger civilizations. They had been, by all accounts, peaceful and benevolent, until something changed. Dr. Bo-Ra Shin, a quantum physicist who had joined the translation team, was the first to understand what had happened. She stood before the emergency council session, her face pale as she delivered her report. "The Architects discovered what they called reality-cutting technology," she began. "Initially, they used it for construction and space travel, just like we planned to do. But then they detected something that made them desperate." She gestured to the holographic display showing the translated texts. "They called them the Silence, entities from outside normal space-time that feed on consciousness itself. The Silence had found our reality and were slowly seeping through the quantum foam, consuming entire species without anyone realizing what was happening." President Martinez leaned forward. "What do you mean, feeding on consciousness?" "Imagine a parasite that doesn't just kill its host," Bo-Ra explained. "It erases the host's capacity to think, to feel, to exist as a conscious being, while leaving the body intact. Entire worlds of people would continue to function, eating, working, reproducing, but they would no longer be truly alive, just biological machines carrying out programmed functions." The council chamber fell deadly silent. "The Architects realized that conventional weapons were useless against the Silence," Bo-Ra continued. "You can't kill something that doesn't exist in normal spacetime. But reality-cutting technology could sever the connections the Silence used to enter our universe." Admiral Sang-Woo Lee stood up. "So they became the Devourers?" "They became desperate," Bo-Ra corrected. "The final entries describe their last resort, using their reality-cutting drives to literally slice away infected portions of space-time. Entire star systems, entire sectors of space were cut away from our reality and cast into the void between dimensions." Dr. So Young-han, who had been following the translations from her communications post, suddenly understood. They weren't destroying those systems. They were performing surgery on reality itself, cutting out the infected parts to save the rest. "Exactly," Bo-Ra confirmed. "But the process was imprecise. They couldn't always tell where the Silence ended and normal space began, so they had to err on the side of caution, cutting away vast regions of space to ensure they got all of it." "What happened to them?" asked Chancellor Petrov. Bo-Ra's expression grew even more grim. "They succeeded. The final records indicate they managed to sever all of the Silence's access points to our reality. But the cost was enormous. The Architects had cut away so much of space-time that their own civilization couldn't survive. The galaxy was saved, but they became extinct in the process. General Taemin Jung had been studying the tactical implications, and now the galaxy thinks we're the return of the architects because we've rediscovered their technology. No, said a new voice from the chamber entrance. Everyone turned to see Dr. Haewon Yu, one of the youngest members of the FTL research team. She looked terrified. They don't think we're the return of the architects, she continued, walking to the center of the chamber. They think we're the return of the silence. The statement hit the room like a bomb. That's impossible, Dr. Daeho protested. We're clearly biological entities with normal consciousness. Are we? Haewon asked. How would we know? The silence doesn't replace people. It slowly drains their consciousness while leaving their bodies and basic functions intact. The process can take decades or even centuries. She activated her tablet and projected new data onto the main screen. I've been analyzing the quantum signatures our FTL drive produces. They're not identical to the architect records. They're inverted, like a negative image. Dr. Bora studied the data, her face growing paler by the second. The quantum tiers we're creating, they're not cutting away pieces of reality. They're creating entry points. Entry points for what? President Martinez demanded. For the silence, Haewon whispered. Every time we activate our FTL drive, we're creating doorways for them to enter our reality. The moon we consumed wasn't destroyed. It was converted into a gateway. The chamber erupted in panic. Voices raised, people shouted questions, others demanded immediate action. But Admiral Sang-Woo Lee's military training allowed him to cut through the chaos. Silence, he bellowed, using his command voice to restore order. When the room quieted, he turned to Haewon. Are you saying that humanity has been infected by these silence entities? I'm saying it's possible, Haewon replied. The quantum signatures suggest that our FTL technology isn't based on the same principles the architects used. It's based on the opposite. Instead of cutting the silence out of reality, we're inviting them in. Dr. So Young suddenly gasped. The communication patterns from the alien fleet. They're not trying to destroy us because they think we're the old devourers. They're trying to destroy us because they think we're the vanguard of a new silence invasion. But we're not, Chancellor Petrov insisted. We're still human. We can think. We can feel. Can we? Asked Haewon quietly. How would we know if our consciousness was slowly being drained? How would we know if we were becoming biological machines following programmed instructions? Before anyone could answer, every alarm in the building began sounding simultaneously. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in red as technicians rushed to their stations. What's happening? Demanded President Martinez, communications specialist. Yoon-seo Kim looked up from her console, her face white with terror. Long-range sensors are detecting massive quantum disturbances throughout the outer solar system. Something is emerging from the void between dimensions. The silence? Asked Admiral Lee. Unknown, but the quantum signatures match the theoretical models for interdimensional entities, Yoon-seo replied. And they're heading straight for the alien fleet. On the main screen, they could see the alien armada that had come to destroy humanity. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all united in their determination to prevent the return of the reality eaters. None of them were prepared for what was about to emerge from the quantum tiers that humanity's FTL experiments had opened. Throughout the solar system, the silence had found Earth. And this time, they weren't content to slowly drain consciousness over centuries. This time, they were coming in force. As the first interdimensional entities began to materialize in the space between Earth and the alien fleet, Dr. Daeho Kim realized the terrible irony of their situation. Humanity had been trying to join the galactic community only to discover they had accidentally invited the galaxy's greatest enemy to the party. We have to warn them, he said quietly. Who? Asked Admiral Lee. The alien fleet. They came here to stop the silence, but they don't know the silence is already here. If we don't help them, everyone dies, humans and aliens alike. For the first time since the crisis began, The Earth Council faced a choice that wasn't about humanity's survival. It was about whether they would stand with their enemies against a threat that could consume all consciousness in the galaxy. The clock was running out, and the real war was about to begin. The space between Earth and the alien armada had become a battlefield unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The silence entities emerged from quantum tiers like living shadows, their forms barely visible against the starfield. They weren't ships or creatures in any conventional sense. They were absences, holes in reality that moved with terrible purpose. Captain Jun-Ho Park stood on the bridge of the upgraded Taeguk, watching his tactical displays with grim fascination. His sister, Lieutenant Mi-young Park, worked frantically at the weapons console, trying to adapt their reality-cutting technology into something that could fight interdimensional parasites. "Status report," Jun-Ho called out. 37 silence entities have fully manifested," Mi-young replied without looking up from her station. "They're moving toward the alien fleet in a coordinated formation. Fleet Admiral Chang Min-oh's task, force is holding position between them and the Veltari crystal ships." Through the main viewport, Jun-Ho could see the desperate battle unfolding. Earth's hastily assembled fleet of 50 ships faced an impossible task, protecting the very aliens who had come to destroy them from an enemy that shouldn't exist. The Tia, first alien ships to encounter the silence, simply went dark, not destroyed, not damaged. They just stopped responding to communications while continuing to drift forward on their original course. Inside those vessels, Jun-Ho knew, thousands of aliens were becoming empty shells, their consciousness consumed by entities from outside reality. "Admiral O to all ships," crackled the fleet commander's voice over the communication system. "Pattern Omega-7, form up on the Taeguk and prepare for close engagement." Jun-Ho grimaced. Pattern Omega-7 was a desperate maneuver, using their reality-cutting drives as weapons while in close formation with friendly forces. One miscalculation, and they would consume their own allies along with the enemy. On Earth, Dr. Dae-ho Kim worked feverishly in his laboratory, surrounded by displays showing the battle in real time. His hands flew over holographic interfaces as he made final adjustments to the quantum resonance equations. "Hi Ye-jin," he called to his colleague. "How are the drive modifications coming?" Engineer Ye-jin Park looked up from the prototype device she was assembling. "Almost ready. If your calculations are correct, this should allow us to create controlled tiers, surgical cuts that sever the silence's connection to our reality without consuming everything around them." "If," Dae-ho muttered. "If I'm wrong, we'll create a cascade reaction that could unmake the entire solar system." "Then don't be wrong," Ye-jin replied with a tight smile. Back in space, the battle was going badly for everyone. The alien fleet had finally realized that humanity wasn't their enemy. The real threat was the growing swarm of silence entities emerging from quantum tiers throughout the system. But their conventional weapons were useless against interdimensional parasites. Veltari Captain Morthak found himself fighting alongside the humans he had come to destroy. His crystal ship Harmony's Echo moved in formation with Earth vessels, its crystallization beams trying to slow the silence entities, while the human ships prepared their reality-cutting drives. "Human vessel Taeguk," he transmitted, his translator, converting his melodic language into rough English. "Our weapons cannot harm these creatures. What is your tactical assessment?" Captain Jun-Ho considered his response carefully. This was the first direct communication between human and alien military forces, and everything he said would be recorded for history. "Captain Morthak," he replied, "our analysis suggests the silence entities exist partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional weapons can't touch them because they're not fully in our reality. But our FTL drives can cut the connections that anchor them to our dimension." "At what cost?" Morthak asked. "We have seen what your reality-cutting technology can do." "We're working on that," Jun-Ho admitted. "Our scientists believe they've found a way to make precise cuts instead of massive tiers, but we need time to test it." "Time we may not have," Morthak observed. Through his ship's sensors, he could see more quantum tiers opening throughout the outer system. "How many of these creatures are coming?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Hei-Wan Yu, working from the Seoul Institute, had been analyzing the quantum disturbances using Earth's most advanced sensors. All of them. Her voice transmitted across the fleet communication channels. According to my readings, every silence entity that was cast into the void 65 million years ago is trying to return through the tiers we accidentally opened. We're looking at potentially millions of interdimensional parasites. Fleet Admiral Changmin O's flagship Indomitable shuddered as a silence entity brushed against its shields. The contact lasted only seconds, but sensors showed that 17 crew members had stopped responding to neural activity scans. "All ships, this is Admiral O," he transmitted. "We cannot win a defensive battle. Prepare for offensive operations. Doctor." Daeho's voice suddenly cut across all military channels. "Admiral, the modifications are complete. We're transmitting the new drive specifications to all ships now. But I have to warn you, the precision required is extraordinary. One mistake and we could tear reality apart." Captain Jun-ho studied the new data flooding his tactical systems. The modified FTL drives could theoretically create pinpoint tiers that would sever specific quantum connections without causing cascade failures, but the targeting had to be perfect, and the timing synchronized across multiple ships. "Mi Young," he called to his sister. "Can we do this?" Lieutenant Mi Young Park looked up from her weapons console, where she had been working for 6 straight hours to adapt their systems. "The theory is sound, but Jun-ho, we'll be making surgical cuts in the fabric of reality while moving at high speed in the middle of a battle. It's like trying to perform brain surgery while riding a roller coaster during an earthquake." "So, Tuesday," Jun-ho replied with a grim smile. "Signal the fleet. We're going in." What followed was the strangest battle in galactic history. Human ships and alien vessels worked together, using coordinated reality-cutting attacks to sever the silence entities from their dimensional anchors. Each successful cut caused a silence entity to simply cease to exist, not destroyed, but returned to the void outside reality. But for every entity they eliminated, 2 more seemed to emerge from new quantum tiers. The battle became a desperate race. Could they close the dimensional gateways before the entire Silence Army emerged? Veltari Captain Morthak found himself impressed, despite everything. The humans fought with a desperate creativity that reminded him of stories about the ancient architects. They used their reality-cutting technology not as a crude weapon, but as a precision tool, making microscopic adjustments to the fundamental structure of space-time itself. "Captain Park," Morthak transmitted to Jun-ho, "your species may be young, but you fight like the universe itself depends on your victory." "Because it does," Jun-ho replied simply. The turning point came when Dr. Bo-Ra Shin, working from her laboratory on Earth, made a crucial discovery. The quantum tiers weren't random. They followed specific patterns based on the original FTL tests. "I can map them," she transmitted to the fleet. "Every tier, every potential emergence point. If we can get ships to the right locations, at precisely the right times, we can seal all the gateways simultaneously. It would require perfect coordination between dozens of human and alien vessels, each one using reality-cutting technology with surgical precision. One ship arriving too early or too late would doom the entire operation." Admiral Changmin O looked at the tactical plan and shook his head. "The timing requirements are impossible. We'd need synchronization accurate to nanoseconds across multiple light hours of space." "Not impossible," corrected Veltari Captain Morthak. "The Veltari Collective maintains a quantum-entangled communication network throughout our fleet. We can provide the synchronization signals you need." Zephyrian War Commander Thexel, whose dreadnought had just joined the battle, added his voice to the channel. "The Zephyrian Empire offers our ships computing power. Our battle computers can calculate the necessary trajectories and timing. One by one, representatives from dozens of alien species volunteered their ships and their unique technologies for the operation. The fleet that had come to destroy humanity was now working with them to save the galaxy. The final assault began at exactly 1437, Earth Standard Time. 63 ships, human and alien, activated their drives simultaneously, creating precision tears in space-time at predetermined coordinates throughout the solar system. Captain Junho watched his instruments as the Taeguk made its cuts with microscopic accuracy. Around him, the fabric of reality responded like a living thing, the quantum tiers sealing themselves as the silence entities were severed from their anchor points. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like the operation might fail. Several tiers began to expand instead of closing, threatening to create the cascade failure Dr. Daeho had warned about. But then Hyojin's voice came over the intercom. "Secondary pulse now!" Every ship in the fleet fired their drives again in perfect unison. The expanding tiers suddenly collapsed in on themselves, sealing completely. The silence entities that had already emerged found themselves cut off from their dimensional source. One by one, they faded from reality,